The market was alive with sound and smell. Yet in the darkest corner of that alien bazaar lay silence. Merchants shouted prices. Buyers bargained loudly. Strange foods roasted on open flames, and metallic voices of traders echoed through the night. But against all that noise, one small cage stood still, covered in dust, ignored by almost everyone. Inside the cage sat a girl. Her skin was pale with sickness, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair, once bright, now clung in messy strands against her face. Her breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of her chest looking like it could be the last. To the traders, she was not even a person. She was broken goods, a slave too weak to work, too sick to sell, not worth even one coin. A merchant sneered when a buyer glanced toward her cage. The buyer wrinkled his nose and walked away. Others laughed, saying it was foolish to even look at her. They wanted strong arms, sharp teeth, or beauty to show off, not a dying creature who could barely lift her head. Still, her eyes told a different story. They were not empty. They held a faint glow, a small spark, like a candle fighting against the wind. But no one cared to look long enough to notice until a human walked past. He looked different from the rest. His clothes were plain, travel-worn, nothing rich or shiny. His face carried no greed, only a calm expression that seemed out of place in such a cruel market. He walked slowly, as if he had no hurry, and when his eyes landed on the cage in the corner, he stopped. The merchant laughed immediately. "You don't want that one, human. She is almost dead, a waste of money. A weak slave is a burden." He waved his hand as if trying to chase the human toward stronger, healthier stock. But the human did not move. His gaze stayed fixed on the girl. She raised her head slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. For a second, time around them seemed to stop. She tried to smile, but it was not a smile of joy. It was a smile of pain. A smile meant to hide hunger, weakness, and fear. The human knelt down slowly beside the cage, ignoring the dirt, ignoring the mocking stares. He looked into her eyes carefully, as if searching for something. The girl whispered, something too faint for anyone else to hear, a broken word, a soft breath. The human's face tightened for a moment. Then he spoke gently. "How much?" The market fell into laughter. The merchant shook his head. "You are mad, human. You really want this one? She is nothing. You could throw your money in the fire and it would be a better choice," but the human's voice stayed calm. "How much?" The merchant, sensing a chance to earn at least something from the useless girl, gave a careless price. It was low, almost insulting. But to the merchant, even one coin for her was a victory. He expected the human to change his mind. He expected him to laugh and walk away. Instead, the human reached into his pocket and placed the coins on the table without another word. His movement was simple, but the silence that followed was heavy. The cage was opened. The girl tried to stand, but her legs failed her. She stumbled forward, almost falling. Before she hit the ground, the human caught her gently. The crowd muttered, some laughed, some shook their heads. One whispered, "Why waste money on something already dying?" Another said, "Humans are strange creatures, they always choose trouble." The human did not answer them. He lifted the girl in his arms as if she weighed nothing. Her head rested weakly against his shoulder. Her smile returned for just a second, not to hide her pain, but because for the first time in a long time someone had touched her without cruelty. He walked through the crowd, carrying her carefully, ignoring the stares, ignoring the laughter. His steps were steady, his face calm, but inside a storm of thoughts burned. Why did he stop for her? He could not explain it himself. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe it was the hidden strength in her broken body. Or maybe it was simply because she was alone, forgotten, and no one else cared. When he reached the edge of the market, he laid her down, on a simple cot inside a small shelter he had rented for the night. He gave her water slowly, drop by drop so she would not choke. He placed a blanket over her thin body. He sat beside her bed quietly, not moving away, not treating her like trash. The girl's breathing was still weak, but her eyes stayed open a little longer this time. She looked at him and whispered again. Her words were broken, in a language most would not understand. But the human's eyes widened slightly as if he knew what she had said. Outside, the noise of the market faded, but inside that small shelter, something different began. For the first time, the forgotten girl was not alone, and the galaxy had no idea what chain of events had just been set in motion. The marketplace never forgot strange things, and by the next morning, whispers were already spreading. A human had bought the dying alien girl. People said it was madness, others laughed, calling it weakness. In a place where slaves were traded like animals, kindness was seen as foolish. The human ignored the talk. He sat beside the small cot where the girl rested. Her breathing was softer now, not as sharp as before. He had fed her broth spoon by spoon through the night. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, she was still weak, her body shaking even at the effort of lifting her hand. But her eyes stayed open longer now. When she woke again, her lips moved slowly. She whispered a sound, a broken word in her native tongue. The human leaned close, his eyes sharpened as if he understood. He whispered back in her language, and for the first time, her eyes widened with surprise. No one else would have understood her. Her people's language was rare, nearly erased. Her kind had been hunted, sold, and scattered across the stars. Yet this human spoke it as if he had carried the words in his heart for years. The girl's throat was dry, but she managed to whisper, Why help me?" The human didn't answer right away. He just adjusted the blanket around her shoulders and placed another spoon of broth by her lips. When she refused, too tired to eat, he simply stayed beside her, not forcing, not leaving. His silence was louder than any answer. Meanwhile, outside the shelter, merchants talked among themselves. "That human has lost his mind," one said. "To waste coins on a dying slave?" Another chuckled. "He wants to play hero, but he will learn soon. She will not survive the week and his money will be gone." But not everyone laughed. Some eyes watched the shelter carefully. Men cloaked in shadow whispered to each other. "Did you hear? The human bought one of them." "Yes," the other replied. "She carries the marks, even if sickness hides them now. If she lives, she will be dangerous." Inside, the human felt the weight of those eyes, though he could not see them. He had been in many places, seen many battles, and he knew when danger stalked him. But he also knew the girl was too weak to move, too weak to defend herself. So he stayed. When night came, he lit a small lantern. The girl stirred, her voice faint, but steady. They left me to die." The human leaned closer, his voice low and calm. "I know." Her hand trembled as she reached toward him, not to beg, but simply to make sure he was real. She had been treated as dirt for so long that the warmth of his hand on hers felt unreal. Her smile appeared again, thin and weak, but different this time. It was not the fake smile she had used to hide her pain in the cage. It was small, but it was true. The human spoke softly. "No one should be left alone." Like that, those words carried weight. They were not grand, not loud, but in them was a truth deeper than anything she had heard in years. As she drifted back into uneasy sleep, the human sat still, his mind heavy. He knew this choice was not small. By lifting her from that cage, he had stepped into something larger than himself. He could feel it in the air, in the silence between her breaths and the faint scars on her skin that spoke of an ancient history. The next morning, a knock came at the door. The human opened it slowly. Outside stood two merchants, smiling wide but with eyes too sharp. "We heard you bought the sick one said, pretending to sound friendly. "Perhaps you want to trade her back? We can give you another, strong and healthy." The human's voice stayed calm. "No." The merchants laughed uneasily. "You will regret it, human. That one is cursed. Better to let her go now before trouble comes." But the human closed the door without another word. His hand lingered on the handle, his eyes narrowing. He knew they were not simply merchants, they were testing him, feeling him out. He turned back to the cot. The girl was awake, staring at him with frightened eyes. She had heard everything. He walked over and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid," he said quietly. She whispered back, her voice shaking. "You don't know what I am?" The human looked at her carefully. "Maybe I do." Her breath caught, her eyes widened. How could a stranger from another world know her secret? But the calm way he spoke, the way he didn't flinch or step back, told her something she had forgotten long ago. Trust. Outside, the whispers grew darker. Shadows gathered. The choice he made in the market was no longer just about kindness. It was about survival. And soon both he and the forgotten girl would be tested in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The girl lay on the cot, her breaths uneven. Her skin was cold, her hands shaking whenever she tried to move. The human sat near her side, not moving away, not distracted by the noise of the market outside. In the silence of the room, only the sound of her weak breathing filled the air. He had faced many things before, storms, battles, and men stronger than him. But this was different. Here he could not fight with fists or weapons. He could only sit, wait, and hope. He wiped her forehead with a damp cloth, offered water drop by drop, and when she could not hold the cup, he lifted it for her. Each time she opened her eyes, she saw him still there. The merchants had mocked him. The buyers had laughed, but he did not leave her side. He was the only one in the galaxy who treated her not as a burden, but as someone worth saving. Through the night, her fever rose and fell. Sometimes she cried out in dreams, her voice trembling in words no one else would understand. But the human leaned closer. His lips moved, answering in the same forgotten tongue. His voice was steady, as if he had always known those words. At one point, her eyes opened wide in fear. She clutched his arm with surprising strength, whispering, "They will come for me." The human's face did not change, his calm voice returned. "Then they will face me first." She stared at him in disbelief. His promise was simple, spoken softly, yet it carried a weight greater than any shout. For someone who had been left behind, sold and forgotten, those words struck deep. The girl tried to smile again, weak, but real. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I don't need to," the human answered. "You are not alone anymore." Her hand trembled in his, and for the first time in many years, her heart felt something like hope. Outside, the city was restless. Word had spread that the human had kept the sick slave alive through the night. To most, it was a joke, but to a few, it was dangerous news. Shadows gathered at corners. Voices whispered of marks on her skin, of bloodlines lost, of secrets hidden in dying children of her kind. One of those shadows pressed against the thin wall of the shelter, listening. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. He turned to his companion and muttered, "She must not survive." Inside, the girl stirred again. She tried to sit, but her body failed her. The human caught her before she collapsed, holding her gently until she calmed. Her breath brushed against his chest as she whispered, "Why are you still here? You could sell me back or just leave." The human shook his head. "If I leave, you die. That is not something I can accept." Her lips trembled. She had never heard such words before. Her people had been betrayed by promises. Her life had been measured in coins. But this stranger spoke as if her life mattered. And though she was weak, she felt a small strength inside her, a reason to keep breathing. The human stayed awake through the night again. His eyes never closed for long. Each sound outside made him alert. Each creak of wood or shuffle of steps reminded him that danger was near. Still, he sat beside her, refusing to let fear push him away. At dawn, the girl's fever broke. Her skin was still pale, but her breathing steadied. Her eyes opened with more focus. She looked at the human, still there, his hand resting near hers. His eyes were tired but calm. "You watched me all night," she whispered. "Yes," he said simply. "Why?" The human leaned back slightly. "Because no one else would." Her chest tightened. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She turned her face away, ashamed of her weakness. But the human did not laugh, did not mock. He only handed her a small piece of bread, soft enough for her weak hands. "Eat," he said. "One bite is enough for now." She obeyed slowly, chewing carefully, and though it was nothing more than bread, it felt like the richest meal she had ever had because it was given not with force but with care. As she ate, her thoughts circled. Who was this man? Why did he speak her language, a language no one cared to learn anymore? Why did he choose her when hundreds stronger stood in the market? She wanted to ask, but her voice failed her. The human, as if sensing her question, only said, "You are not forgotten, not while I am here." His words hung in the air, heavy, unshakable, but beyond the walls, footsteps echoed. Dark figures moved through the narrow streets, their eyes fixed on the shelter where the human and the alien girl stayed. The merchants had warned him, the whispers had grown sharper, and soon the choice he made would be tested. Inside, the girl drifted to sleep once more, her head resting against the pillow. The human sat beside her bed, silent, ready, his eyes calm but watchful. He did not know when the storm would break, but he knew one thing with certainty: when it came, he would not leave her side. The girl slept, her chest rising and falling with steadier rhythm now. The fever had broken, but her body was still weak. The human stayed close, silent, watching. He had guarded many things in his life: cargo, secrets, even soldiers. But never before had he guarded something as fragile as this girl. Hours passed, and the city outside grew noisy again. Merchants shouted, wheels rolled, boots struck against stone. But inside the small shelter, the world was quiet. The human used that silence to think. His decision to save her had not been planned. Yet deep inside he felt it was no accident. In the afternoon the girl stirred, her eyes opened slowly, this time clearer. She blinked at the man beside her bed, still sitting, still watching. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice rough. "I said I would," he replied. His tone was calm, but there was no doubt in it. She shifted slightly under the blanket. Her thin hand touched her arm as if to cover something. The human noticed the movement. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Instead, he poured a cup of water and held it to her lips. She drank carefully, every swallow painful but necessary. When the cup was empty, she lay back. Her eyes stared at the ceiling as if remembering something far away. Then, without warning, she spoke words in her own language, long, flowing sounds that filled the room with a strange rhythm. Her voice was soft but urgent, like a dream she could not hold on to. The human froze. His eyes sharpened. He understood. He had not spoken her tongue in years, but he had never forgotten it. She whispered, "The stars were burning. I saw them fall, and the river of blood carried our names away." Her breathing quickened, her body trembled. She was not awake fully, trapped between sleep and memory. The human leaned closer, answering in the same tongue. "You are safe now. The stars are far above, and no river can reach you here." Her eyes opened wide, startled. She stared at him, shocked that he had understood. You speak it?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply. Her lips trembled. "No one remembers, not even my own kind. They sold us, broke us, scattered us. And you..." Her voice cracked. She looked at him as if seeing something impossible. "Why do you know my words?" The human did not answer right away. His eyes carried old shadows, battles fought, promises broken. "Because I listened when others refused," he finally said. She fell silent. Her weak hand slid from the blanket, revealing faint marks, burned into her skin, glowing softly like scars but older, symbols curved like stars in a pattern, her people's ancient crest long erased from history. The human's breath slowed. He had seen those marks once before, on walls destroyed by war, on banners burned to ash. They were the marks of a royal bloodline thought extinct. The girl noticed his gaze and quickly pulled the blanket over herself again. Fear filled her voice. "Do not tell anyone, please. If they know, they will come." "They already will," the human replied quietly. "But not because of what you are. Because you are alive, and they fear what lives." Her heart pounded. She turned her face away. A tear slid across her cheek. She had been sold as nothing, treated as trash, yet inside her blood carried the weight of an empire lost. And now a stranger, a human, spoke her tongue and sat beside her bed as if her life was worth guarding. Outside, shadows moved again. One figure whispered to another, "She is the last. The blood is real. The marks prove it. We must act before she recovers." Inside, the girl whispered, "Why do you risk this? They will kill you too." The human's face stayed calm. "Then they will try." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken like that for her. Not her own kind. Not the traitors. Not anyone. She felt weak, but something deep inside her chest stirred. A flicker of strength she thought was lost. That night, her dreams returned, clearer now. She saw flames, broken towers, her people chained and dragged into ships. She saw her mother's face fading into the dark. She cried out in her sleep, speaking in her language again. The human placed his hand gently on her shoulder, whispering back, "It is past. It cannot reach you here." But as he said those words, he knew it was not true. The past had already reached her, and now it was reaching for him too. When dawn came, the girl's eyes opened with a steadier light. She looked at the human and asked in a quiet voice, "If they come for me, will you still stay?" He met her gaze, his voice strong. "Yes, until the end." Her tears returned, but this time she did not hide them. She let them fall, and for the first time since her world was destroyed, she felt less like a slave and more like herself again. And in that small room beside that simple bed, something ancient awoke. Not just her memory, but the destiny tied to her blood. The human had no idea how far this choice would take him. But he was ready. Outside, the hunters were already moving closer. The city never slept, not really. Even at night, its alleys whispered, its markets echoed with secret deals, and its shadows moved with purpose. Somewhere out there, people were already speaking the human's name, not with respect, but with warning. "They say he bought the dying slave," a voice murmured in a crowded tavern. "They say she lived through the night." Another voice answered, darker. "She is not just a slave. She carries the blood that should have died with her. People, if she lives, others may remember. If they remember, the balance shifts." And so the hunters came. Not official guards, not soldiers, but men who lived in the cracks of power. They were paid to silence problems before they grew too large, and the girl, sick, fragile, forgotten, was suddenly a problem. Inside the small shelter, the girl tried to rest. Her fever had lessened and her voice was clearer, but her eyes carried fear. She knew the whispers outside were not empty. Her kind had always been hunted. She had learned long ago that safety never lasted. The human sat, near her as always, calm, his presence steady. He had noticed the shadows too, the footsteps that lingered too long, the faces that passed by the shelter more than once. He said nothing, but his hand never strayed far from the knife at his belt. That night, as the lantern burned low, the girl whispered, "They are coming. I can feel it." The human nodded slowly. "I know." Her voice broke. "You should leave me. If they find me here, they will kill you too." But the human leaned closer, his voice firm. "Listen to me. I will not leave you. If they come, they will face me first." Her breath shook. Her heart wanted to believe him, but her mind screamed it was impossible. He was just one man, one stranger. He could not stand against the hunters. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw no fear, only a quiet certainty. Outside, the shadows gathered. 3 men, cloaked and silent. Their leader raised his hand, and the others moved closer to the door. Inside, the girl gripped the blanket, whispering in her language. "Not again, not again." Her memories of cages, of chains of fire burned inside her chest. She closed her eyes, waiting for the sound of boots breaking through. But the human stood. His steps slow, steady. He walked to the door and placed his hand on the handle, waiting. He did not rush. He did not breathe heavy. He simply waited, as if daring them to come. The first knock came, soft but sharp. "Open," a voice ordered. The human did not answer. The knock came again, louder. "We know what you have, human. Give her up and you walk free. Keep her and you die tonight." The girl's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head desperately. "Please, don't fight them. Please, just go." But the human turned his head slightly, giving her a calm smile. "I said you are not alone, remember?" Then he pulled the door open. The 3 hunters stood outside, their blades glinting faintly in the lantern light. Their leader sneered, "Step aside, human. This is not your fight." The human's voice was quiet, but it carried. "It is now." The hunters laughed. 1 man against 3? Do not be foolish. But they did not know humans well. They did not know the kind of stubbornness born in hearts that refuse to bow. The first hunter lunged, fast and sharp, but the human moved quicker. His knife flashed, catching the hunter's wrist and twisting until the blade clattered to the ground. A sharp kick sent the man stumbling back, gasping. The other 2 attacked together, but the human was ready. He ducked under the swing of one, slamming his elbow into the attacker's ribs. The crack echoed through the street. The second hunter screamed, dropping to his knees. The leader snarled, drawing a curved blade. His eyes burned with fury. He charged, his strike aimed straight at the human's chest. But the human stepped aside at the last moment, catching the man's arm and slamming him into the wall. The blade clanged against stone. The human pressed his own knife against the hunter's throat, his voice steady. "Leave." The hunter froze. His companions staggered to their feet, wounded and furious. But the look in the human's eyes stopped them cold. There was no fear, only a deadly promise. Slowly they backed away into the shadows, dragging their injured with them. Their leader hissed, "This is not the end, human. You cannot fight us all." The human closed the door calmly. His chest rose and fell with deep breaths, but his eyes stayed sharp. Behind him, the girl stared, trembling. She had seen men fight before, but not like this. Not with such control, such silence, such certainty. Her heart pounded, not with fear, now, but with something else, something close to trust. You fought for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. The human sat beside her bed again, as if nothing had happened. "I told you, you are not alone." Her tears fell freely. Now she reached out, gripping his hand weakly. "Then maybe I can live." And for the first time since she was caged, her words carried hope. But outside, in the deeper shadows of the city, more eyes were watching. The hunters had failed, but others would come. Stronger, crueler, and the human knew the storm had only begun. The night after the hunters came, silence wrapped around the small shelter. The girl lay awake, unable to close her eyes. Every sound made her heart race, the creak of wood, the whisper of wind, the distant shout of drunks in the market. But through it all, the human sat near her, calm, unmoving. She watched him from the corner of her eyes. He had fought for her, risked his life without hesitation, and that choice haunted her. For if he knew who she truly was, he would realize the danger was far greater than 3 hired killers. Finally, she whispered, "You should not have done that." The human looked at her, his face unreadable. "Done what?" "Fought them," she said, her voice trembling. "They will send more, stronger ones. They won't stop until they have me." He answered simply, "Then I will fight more." Her breath shook. She turned her face away. "You don't understand. It's not just about me being a slave, it's what I am." The human leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Then tell me." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down. She had hidden the truth for so long, but after everything he had done, after the blood he spilled to keep her alive, could she keep it from him? Slowly she pulled the blanket back. Her thin arms trembled, and the pale skin of her shoulder caught the lantern light. There, carved into her flesh, were the glowing marks she had tried to hide before. Symbols that pulsed faintly, as if alive. The human's eyes locked on them. His breath slowed. He had seen these marks before. Not on people, but in ruins left after battles. carved on shattered walls of temples, he whispered. The crest of the fallen houses. Her voice cracked. Not fallen, destroyed my people. We were hunted, betrayed, our homes burned, our names erased. Only blood could carry the crest, and I am the last. Her words shook the air. It was more than confession. It was a truth buried in ash and silence. The human sat back slowly. His eyes did not hold shock, but recognition. I thought the bloodlines were gone. They wanted you to believe that, she said bitterly. The ones in power made sure of it. They erased us, so no one would rise again. Her chest rose and fell sharply. If they know I live, they will finish what they started. The human was silent, for a moment. Then he spoke, calm as ever. That is why they came for you. She nodded, her body shaking. I am not worth saving. My blood is a curse. It will bring death to anyone who stands near me. But the human's eyes hardened. Your blood is not a curse, it is truth, and truth should never be buried. Her tears fell freely. She had expected rejection, fear, disgust. But instead, his words gave her something else, something she had almost forgotten existed. Dignity. Still, she whispered, you don't know what this means. If you protect me, you fight against the ones who rule the stars. The human leaned closer, his voice steady. Then let them come. She gasped softly, staring at him. His eyes burned not with madness, but with unshakable will. And for the first time she wondered, what kind of people were humans, that one of them could speak like this? Outside, the city stirred again. Word spread faster than fire. Rumors of a girl with glowing marks. Whispers of royal blood returned. Fear traveled with those whispers, for if she lived, old loyalties might rise again. Armies might remember who they once served. The hunters who had failed whispered to their masters, she lives and the human protects her. Their masters answered coldly, then burn them both, let no trace remain. Inside the shelter, the girl trembled. She looked at the human with desperate eyes. They will come with soldiers, not just knives in the dark. You cannot fight them all. The human's voice was quiet but strong. Maybe not, but I will not let them take you. Her lips parted. Her heart beat faster. Something inside her chest shifted. Where fear had lived, a spark of courage now flickered. If one man could stand without fear, then maybe she could find strength too. That night, as she drifted into uneasy sleep, the marks on her skin glowed faintly brighter. Memories stirred inside her mind. Memories not only of pain, but of voices, of her mother's hand resting on her shoulder, whispering, you are the last light. She woke with tears, whispering to herself, the last light. The human looked at her questioningly. What did you say? She swallowed hard, meeting his eyes. If I am the last, then I cannot hide forever. Her weak hand gripped his firmly. But if I must face them, will you still be there? His answer was simple, as always. Yes. And in that moment, the forgotten slave girl was no longer just a survivor. She was something more. And beside her bed sat the one man willing to fight an empire to keep her alive. But outside, the hunters had already gathered again. This time, not 3 men in shadows, but many, armored and armed, and the night carried a question heavier than any before. Could one human truly defy the will of the stars? The city awoke restless. Clouds hung heavy, the streets filled with whispers, and the smell of coming blood was in the air. The hunters had failed, but their masters would not. This time, soldiers marched, not shadows. Armored boots struck stone, weapons gleamed. Their orders were simple. Erase the girl. Erase the human who dared to protect her. Inside the small shelter, the girl sat up weakly. Her marks glowed faint beneath her skin. Her breath shook as she whispered, "They are here." The human looked. At her, his calm face unchanged. He adjusted his belt, checked the edge of his knife, and pulled a small iron rod from his pack. Simple tools compared to the soldier's weapons, yet his hands were steady. The girl clutched the blanket, fear rising in her chest. "You can't fight them, there are too many." The human's voice was firm. "Then I'll make them remember. Sometimes one stand is enough to change everything. She stared at him, trembling. Why? Why risk your life for me? Life. His eyes softened for the first time. Because when I saw you, forgotten in that cage, I saw more than a slave. I saw someone who should not die alone. And because no one else would, so I will. Her throat tightened. Her eyes filled with tears. She reached for his hand, gripping it weakly. Then I will not hide, not anymore. The door shook with the first strike. Soldiers outside shouted, "Open, human! Give her up and live! Resist and die!" The human stood between the bed and the door, his body a wall, his voice calm. "She stays." The door burst open. Soldiers rushed in, blades drawn. Their eyes burned with orders, but their faces froze for a moment when they saw him standing firm. No armor, no shield, just a human with steady eyes. The first soldier charged, his blade flashed, but the human sidestepped, slamming the iron rod into his helmet. The soldier fell with a crash. Another lunged, but the human caught his arm and twisted until the bone cracked. The scream filled the room. More soldiers poured in. The girl gasped, clutching her chest. She wanted to scream, to beg him to stop, but her voice failed. She could only watch as the human moved. His strikes sharp, his steps steady. He fought not like a desperate man, but like someone who had lived in battle for years. Still, numbers pressed heavy. For every soldier he struck down, another stepped in. His chest rose with deep breaths. Sweat glistened on his face, his knife was stained, his arm bled where a blade had grazed him. The girl cried out, "You'll die!" But the human turned his head slightly, giving her that calm half-smile. Not yet. Then something changed. The marks on her skin glowed brighter. The air around her shimmered. Her blood, ancient and royal, stirred awake. Her weak voice rose, speaking words she did not even remember learning. Symbols in the air burned faintly. The soldiers hesitated, fear in their eyes. "She carries the blood." One shouted, "Kill her now." But the human roared, his voice thundering louder than their blades. "You will not touch her." He charged forward, striking with fury. His knife cut through armor straps, his rod shattered helmets. He moved with the kind of strength born not from power, but from will. His defiance filled the room. The girl felt her chest burn. Her body, too weak to fight, but her spirit rose. For years she had been silent, forgotten. But now, as she saw the human refusing to bend, refusing to step aside, she found her voice. She stood slowly, her legs trembling, her marks glowing like fire. Her voice carried, "I am not broken, I am not forgotten, I live." The soldiers froze, their fear deepened. The crest on her skin glowed brighter, proof of her bloodline. The human struck the last one to the ground. His chest heaved, blood streaked his arm, but his eyes were still sharp. He turned to her, steady. "They will come again, more stronger." She nodded, her voice quiet but strong. "Then let them come. I will not run. Not anymore." He stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone, not while I breathe." Her tears fell, but this time they were not from fear. They were from strength. She looked at him and whispered, "Then together, we stand." Outside, the soldiers who remained dragged their wounded away. Their leader spat into the dirt, his voice shaking. "A human. One human stood against us. If word spreads, others will rise. This is dangerous." Far above, the stars glittered, silent witnesses to the choice made in a forgotten corner of the city. A human and a broken girl, standing against the weight of an empire no one knew yet. But in that moment, history shifted. Because sometimes all it takes is one human who refuses to walk away.